Mets fans, before we kind of start our episode, we would like to pay our respects to the Snow family. It's been a very tough week. The journey that we've been able to watch through social media, through Kelsey Snow's story of her husband, Chris Snow, has been a powerful one. And everything that this family's done of, opening the social media side of it and letting us see how things have been, was obviously wonderful and seeing their story, but heartbreaking in a way too. And yesterday we lost a great man, a great person, a hero, a person that helped a lot of people. And Chris Snow, on behalf of me at the and us at the 2 Months podcast, I like to say my thoughts and prayers. We have our team here with us, and we have a very special guest joining us too, and he'll have his thoughts. I'll throw to Clay first. Clay, your kind of thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, it's sad. You knew it was bound to happen, I guess. But just looking how hard he fought, I remember watching him on. I think it was Hockey Night in Canada. Was it After Hours?
Yeah.
With his family, and you see how hard the guy was fighting, and how supportive his wife was. I mean, she deserves a ton of credit for what she was going through and how she kept a brave face. And then you think of the two kids, young kids that he had, and he was young himself as well. And it, how he fought it and continued to even work, right up until, whenever it was. But yeah, thoughts go to his family and those two little kids that he's got. And the great thing is the hockey community, as we know, with the Kobe Cave situation with Ben Stelter, people rally around tragedy in the hockey community, and they'll be supported moving forward. So
Phil?
Yeah, like as a Flames fan, I got to we all kind of went along on this journey with his family, and such a tragic end, unfortunately. But like Mandy just said, the good does come out of it with the support and the awareness that the Snow family has brought forth from this terrible sickness. And I know like Chris Snow was doing some trials for and like the guy was only supposed to live for like 6 months, and he made it like more than 3 years. So the advancements that they've made, and another like light from this is Chris was able to donate some organs and give some other people some life too. So
yeah, great point.
Yeah, what a hero, what a great guy, and he's gonna surely be missed in the hockey world, not only just for the Flames but for the hockey world.
And Bob Stauffer?
Well, I think this reinforces, what we talk about. I mean, a guy like myself gets to work in the toy department of life, right? Like, it's a privilege to do what I do. Yeah. It's funny, I was communicating with somebody tonight, and I never envy anybody that works in politics, because invariably half of societies these days seems like they're down on you. I gotta follow around, arguably, well, not an argument in my opinion, the most advanced player to ever live. And he's got a pretty good running mate with him in terms of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in my role. And I know I've said it multiple times on the air. I've said it multiple times when I'm with you guys. I'm for the battle for Alberta, not the Battle of Alberta. There's rivalry, but at the end of the day, never lose sight of the fact that, I think, like, I'm cheering for Calgary. And so you develop tremendous empathy. I remember, something with Matt Stajan a few years ago. He went through an incredibly brutal time, and your heart goes out to people. And I look at sort of Chris's journey, and he was with Minnesota, and then he joined Brad, and the Flames had a really good management team, and Chris was part of that. And they did some things, like they built a great minor league team the last 2 years. That's been as good a AHL team as there is, and they did a lot of things that were very proactive and progressive. And so, from a hockey perspective, there's some things to admire. And by all reports, from a personal perspective, he was a wonderful guy, a great husband, and a terrific father. So that end of it, it's sad, but there's also, to a certain extent, we need to, yes, Chris has passed, but we need to celebrate what this man's done and celebrate, his passing. I think that, there's an opportunity, and it's hard, especially when it's a younger man in the situation with his wife and family. But the reality of the situation is he was a pretty special guy. And I don't think that's lost to anybody out there in the hockey world. And I think you saw that with the outpouring of comments that came from Brad Treliving with the Maple Leafs and the Oilers today, and the various different teams that had the privilege of interacting with Chris Snow over the last several years.
Thank you, Stauf. Thank you, guys. And yes, our thoughts and prayers with the family, the organization, the fans, and all the lives that Chris Snow touched. He'll be a hero forever, and we were thinking of him, and it was a beautiful ceremony they had the other night when the Oilers played the Flames. So thank you. Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall. I have my co-host with me. We have Clay Vanderham. Bandy, how's it going?
Bandy is dandy. Just got out of the rink. My U13 kids were playing. Yeah, they ended up winning their first game of the year. So good start, and sitting with the podcast, ready to talk some puck and stick with you guys.
Yes, and we got Phil Stockley. Phil, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. I was in the rink all weekend too. My boys out in New Sarepta had their tryouts this weekend, and both boys made the A team. So pretty relieved. We just got the news right before we jumped on here, and both those boys are pumped, and some proud parents here too. So we're doing good.
You say relieved. It is. That's what it is at the end of tryouts. Wherever they make it, like, I don't know if parents haven't gone through evaluations for their kids. It is a very stressful time for a lot of parents, and the anxiety level is very high. I have emails to show that, but it is.
There we go.
Good for them, man. Good.
Right on. Good stick taps. And we have our guest with us joining us tonight. He's from the Edmonton Oilers Radio Network, and Rogers Sportsnet. On the regional side, we'd like to welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast, Bob Stauffer. Stauf, how's it going?
Good. It's great to see that Phil's kids can overcome his genetics to make that team.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, they didn't get it from me. 100% they didn't get it from me.
Phil's the
I'm pretty sure my kids, like 7 and 10, are like literally way better at hockey than I am. So,
well, they did have Rupper. Were they out at Rupper and Brody's camp?
Not yet. No, they haven't. They haven't got to experience Rupper and Brody yet. So,
sorry, Bob, we took your thunder there.
All right, all good.
Yeah. Stauf, obviously some big news tonight. Leading into, you're in Seattle. You guys play Seattle. You guys been on the road here a little bit in the preseason, but some sad news in a way. Brandon Sutter retiring. He came in on the PTO. But can you kind of give a quick thoughts on kind of what he overcame just to even get onto the ice during training camp?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you guys know that he had long COVID, and he basically didn't play for the last 2.5 seasons. So it was always going to be a challenge. There was a moment in last night's game, the third period in Vancouver, where you could see a little bit of I thought you can maybe see some frustration that he couldn't get to where he used to be able to get to. And that's, and now they had a good lineup. They basically had their entire first unit power play on the ice, and that tilted the game in the third period. And the Oilers ended up twice in situations where they're 5-on-3. I didn't think, to be honest with you, that Sutter did that poorly. Like, I got to tell you, I think he had some decent moments. But at the end of the day, he's got to do what his body tells him, and what his body tells him at this stage is that it's probably over at the NHL level. The irony is, from a purely Oilers centric perspective, a strong argument can be made that he was exactly, if he had been healthy, like if they could have had the 31-year-old first of all, if they have the 31-year-old Brandon Sutter, he's a third line center, not a fourth line center. But he just, I think that, he just got robbed of truly being able to extend here and possibly get a contract just due to health and some of the challenges that he's had.
Yeah. How do you see that fourth line center shaping out here? Do you think there's some internal players that you see in that position, or do you think maybe there's a situation maybe you would keep an eye on the waiver wire, anyone that hasn't had a contract yet that might be on a PTO somewhere else, or just some players sitting at home waiting for it?
Yeah, Josh, it's interesting because there's not a lot out there. Just before I came on with you guys, I looked at potential 24 summer 24 free agents. There's one that's sort of a regular player right now, and that's Travis Boyd that plays for Arizona, and he was like minus 30 last year. They had a bad team.
Yeah.
And, the Oilers made the deal last year to go get Bukestad basically in that role, as a bottom six guy. Lane Peterson is played a bunch of games. I think in a perfect world, he's your first line center in your minor league team. I think he's might not be in the lineup tomorrow because he's played a bunch of games, but I think you might see him get one more game for sure here. And then I think you might see Derek Ryan. They could slide Derek Ryan back in the center. I know he played in center with Calgary, started off as a center and then kind of got reinvented as a right wing. And I wonder if at some stage whether or not they look at Holloway. And I guess I will say this with Holloway is going to be on the team. There's no question. Through the first week of the preseason, he's been the best player. He was excellent again. He was the best player on the ice best skater on the ice because Campbell played well in goal at Calgary. I think that, if the Oilers, clearly now they're not signing Sutter. Peterson, he's in the mix. And I just wonder whether or not, Lavoie scored the other night. Pretty sure we're going to get a couple more looks at him here. I think it might enhance the probability that Lavoie makes the team here out of to start the year. Because, of course, we've not had Ryan McLeod. He hasn't played a preseason game yet. He's going to play later this week. That's my expectation. But I think you might see. I don't think it's going to be a pickup on the waiver wire. And I don't think it's going to be a trade. So I think it's going to have to be an internal solution, at least in the time being.
Andy, you got anything there for Stauffer? I know you were kind of talking about some things earlier.
No, one thing, and again, going back to Sutter, you could tell, that he was, a step or two behind, and you could see. I caught the last bit of the game. You could see I think it was that tripping penalty in the third.
Yeah.
When he was skating to the box, you could see he was just going, I think it's done. It's over. You can kind of see it in his face. I'm interested. Again, I haven't watched a lot of the preseason, but Adam Erne, is that a guy that can crack?
I think he's got an outside shot. He's in on a PTO. Gagne is on a PTO as well, but isn't Gagne is probably going to have to do what Jason Demers did last year and start in the minors and going on an ATO just because he's rehabbing from hip surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Erne is physical. He's a thick dude. He is.
Yeah, you can see it in his face.
Yeah, he is not he's almost got the opposite body type of Brandon Sutter. I'm not sure Brandon Sutter at 6'3" was 185 pounds. And Ernie's probably carrying 210 quite comfortably. So he is physical. That's a good, it's a, put it this way. I think the 12th forward spot at this stage is going to come down to Lavoie, Erne, or Peterson. That's my guess. I think it's going to come down to one because I've got 11 guys on the team, right? So let's just operate in the context of the lines they broke training camp, really started training camp with. So McDavid was with Kane and Brown, and then Nugent Hopkins and Hyman were on the wings with Draisaitl. McLeod was with Fogle, would be theoretically with Fogle and Ryan, because that's who finished the playoffs together last year. And then you have Holloway and Janmark. So those 11 guys are on the team. I think they're going to have 7D on the team for sure. And we're looking, based on how they started training camp again, Nurse with Bouchard, CC, and Kulak and CC. And then you're going to have Ekholm when he's ready. He might not play until the start of the regular season. Ekholm with, either Broberg or Desharnais. So there's the 7. So we're looking, and then the 2 goalies are Skinner and Campbell. So we're looking at 3 guys. I think at this stage, you're looking at 3 guys for 1 job or 1 spot on the team. So it's either going to be Peterson, who's a natural center, Lavoie. Where do you play him? I mean, he made 2 or 3 plays last night. Like, he is 6'5". He's a confident player. He's not timid, which I can I'm not saying he goes and runs around like guys did back in the 80s, but he doesn't take, like he did it. There were a couple things that happened backside last night. I was like, oh, okay. And then you have Ernie, who clearly can play in the league. It's just, are you worried about losing Lavoie on waivers potentially? So I think it's down to those 3 guys for the 12 forward spot.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of conversations about Noah Gregor just because he's looked pretty good in Toronto. I've watched a lot of his games there, but from what I've been told and from what I hear is he'll end up signing with the Leafs and
yeah.
Well, and like that's the thing too, right? Yeah, do you go in house and give Lavoie a shot, or do you?
There's one more guy actually. Now that you mentioned Noah Gregor, and that's James Hamlin. Just because, like Gregor can skate, and Gregor's a far more established player in the league. Okay, so but that being said, Hamlin got 10 games in last year, and so did Malone. So I guess you could argue that those other guys are kind of in the mix as well. But I'm with you, Josh. I think the Leafs are going to sign Noah Gregor as well.
Yeah, that seems to be a foregone conclusion there. And I know they got some injuries on the back end, but we'll see what happens in Toronto. Vandy, you got anything else there? I know there's a few things you kind of want to run by here, but
no. I mean, it's going to be it's been a while since we've had this kind of competition for spots, and I think
good thing.
I think Woodcroft had mentioned it that the competition's high. What I love, and again, I haven't watched a lot of it, but what I have noticed is the compete level from top to bottom in games. Is even last night you're down 5-2, you're sending a message to a team that probably won't be in the mix, but
I wouldn't say that.
Vancouver?
Yeah, I think they're going to make playoffs.
Yeah,
anyway, they said
we'll get there.
They didn't back down.
Yeah,
and they went at them, right?
Yeah,
with guys that and I think in prior years it probably would have been a 5-2 victory with everybody skating off and nobody having any bruise.
I really liked the Oilers game against the Flames the other night in Calgary. Like, I really thought there was a lot of wins in that situation. I know it was a close game. Calgary dressed, more of a.
Calgary had
Jack Campbell was great in that game.
Yeah, like Calgary had 16 guys on the team, and the Oilers had 9. Sorry, that was. Let's see, what do I got here? I got, by my counts, 13 for the Flames and 7 for the Oilers. Last night I had 16 Canucks and 9 Oilers.
Yeah.
Seattle, because they put the rosters out. Seattle, by my count, is going to have 12, and Edmonton's going to have 10 tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good then, and I think, like you touched on it earlier, Stauffer, like I thought Holloway looked good. I think,
Holloway looked great.
Yeah, like he's, Tony Barr was talking about it on Twitter, really good. Phil, I know you want to talk about the defense. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, you mentioned Broberg a little earlier, and I was just kind of wondering how, like, where you kind of had him slotted in that lineup, because I've seen a few people have him slotted with Ekholm, and like, how important of a year is it for him, and how important is that going to be for Ekholm to kind of bring him along this year?
Well, you know who brought Ekholm along, Phil, was Weber, right? He really helped transition in Ekholm. This is a big year for Broberg, and what's happened here is some other defensemen have Niemelainen, who's a left shot, is back, you know, to where he was 2 years ago, where he's done a good job taking gap time and space away and gapping, and he's been physical. I haven't minded Gleason, who played with a little bee in his bonnet last night against Vancouver. So he's looked okay. And then on the right side, Kemp is steady Eddie, and you have Desharnais. So I would like to see Broberg play with Ekholm again. If Jay Woodcroft said this week there's a chance we'll see Nurse and Bouchard to start the year, to me that opens up the window and the mechanism to have Ekholm and Broberg playing together. And I think if the Oilers should have a good enough team and they can build during the course of the year. Like I have 5 teams in the Pacific making it, right? So I've got Edmonton, I've got Vegas, Calgary, Vancouver, and Los Angeles. I think those 5 teams make it.
Yeah, I think there's 5 out of the Pacific for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like Seattle made it last year. I just look at the save percentages of their goalies. They're sub 900 save percentages. Like I don't see, and I don't know if they're going to get the same diversity of scoring that they had last year. So, but anyway, circling back to the defense, I think the Oilers 7, 8, 9, 10 is better than it's been. But I think most of the people watching this podcast right now would say, come on, Stauffer, Broberg's got to show more. And I don't know if you guys know what happened, but he originally wasn't slated. So the Oilers played a week ago Sunday at home, and Broberg played. He wasn't supposed to play Monday in Winnipeg. Then they needed him to play, and he'd been skated pretty hard in the morning Monday. And then he hops on. They needed him to play because you have to have so many veterans dressed.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought he kind of ran out of gas in the third period of the game against Winnipeg. The opposite happened last night for him, where I didn't think he was particularly assertive early in Vancouver. And then I thought he got a lot better as the game wore on. So there's something there, and defensemen take longer. And the general manager, if he's done anything, he's got a history of being patient. So we'll see. But if you're sitting there saying, stop, I don't know. I understand that perspective from people having that out there. Like, I don't know, bro. Or if you're the opposite is just give him time and see how he looks with Ekholm. Did anybody see Bouchard taking off the way he took off with Ekholm last year? Did anybody see that at all?
No, it was just a rocket. And I think anyone that's listened to Ekholm's interview with Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman, that's an amazing interview. Like, he's an amazing speaker. They kept saying he has a career in media after he's done playing in the NHL.
He's a great guy to deal with, let me tell you.
Yeah, we've heard nothing but great things. And, you know, Matt Benning's a good friend of our podcast. And, you know, he played with him for 2 years in Nashville and speaks very highly of him. And, you know, he's come in, and what was the record? 18-2-1 with.
Hey, you're listening. Yes.
So
it's the best record in the league. Now, the Oilers had a very easy schedule down the stretch, right? They had San Jose and Anaheim like 3 times each.
Yeah.
But the guy went plus 28 in 21 games.
Yeah. And one of the things, Stauffer, that he talked about, I don't know if you heard the interview, but one of the things that Ekholm was talking was just the breath of fresh air. In Nashville is a lot of defensive zone starts. In Edmonton, it was a lot of offensive zone starts. And obviously, you know why that's going to be with Bouchard and some of the other guys. But can you kind of elaborate a little bit more of what he's brought to the Oilers, and just that absurdiveness, you know, the poise, the leadership, just, I don't know, a little bit more from what you've seen in the game? And have you seen a player like that come into a new situation and translate it so in such a well, you know, because the way he translated in was so well. And a lot of times people have a tough time when they do get traded. It's kind of goes the opposite way. This way it went up to the.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Like, you know, some managers will tell you don't know what you have with the player after the first 3 months of a trade. But what I will tell you is Edmonton did their homework on the trade. Like, you know, in early February, I was the guy on the intermission saying, hey, like, now's the time to go get the guy. Well, as it turned out, Ken Holland got the perfect guy. Like, you couldn't argue with a more impactful player, right? Like, he contributed offensively. He went plus 28 in 21 games. He helped Evan Bouchard. The power play got better. I think the biggest thing that Ekholm does is he's just steady.
Mm-hmm.
There's no inconsistency with what you're going to get.
Yep.
He's there. He's in the right spots on the ice. The biggest message I could, you know, it's funny. I had a friend and he got remarried. And his stepson went fourth in the Bantam draft. He's 6'4", 190 pounds, right shot defenseman. He's only played D for 3 years. He showed me video of him like 2 years ago on the trampoline. I'm like, how tall is he? This is when he was like 12. And he goes, well, he's 6'2.5". And I go, a 12-year-old 6'2.5" kid, that athletic at that size? He goes, yeah. I go, he probably has it. So he played goalie. And then so he's going into his 4th year of playing defense, and he might be the best player that's drafted in the Western League right now that's not playing in the league, because he had an unreal camp with Victoria. He scored a couple goals. Remember, he's a defenseman, so he's playing at rink.
Bearhoff or no?
It's Keaton Bearhoff. Yeah, he's playing in. So, but I said one word of advice: 5-foot pass. 5-foot pass. The best defenseman can make the 5-foot pass.
Yeah.
Right. Nick Lidstrom, he can make a 5-foot, right? Like, you guys all watched the game. You all played the game. Like, if you're under duress as a D, I used to love going up against bigger, rangier defensemen, because usually their puck skills sucked, right? And then the other thing is, I was a thicker build, and I could get underneath them and hurt them when I hit them, right? And back then, you drove through guys when you hit them. There was no hitting from behind or anything like that in the 80s, right? Like, I just wasn't good enough to progress beyond, playing AA hockey at Edmonton. But the point I'm making in this is 5-foot pass, 5-foot pass. Like, that's what Ekholm does, is he makes a really good, the offense was a bit of a bonus. And the only argument you can make is, why, if it ain't broke, don't, like, if it ain't right, why are you changing the Ekholm Bouchard? It obviously worked. And part of the reason why because I think they want to distribute the minutes more evenly. I think they want to get the minutes down a bit on Darnell. Okay. Maybe down about a minute a game. And they'll have 3 defensemen that play 20 plus minutes: Nurse, Ekholm, and Bouchard. CC played 20 last year. I think they're trying to get him around 18. Kulak at 17, 18. And then hopefully one of Broberg or Darnay goes to like 12 to 15 type thing. But the biggest thing is, he's steady, he's calm with the puck, he doesn't panic under pressure, and he can make a 5-foot pass.
Before we get to the Flames, so where do you have the Oilers ranked? So once we let you go here, we're going to kind of just dive in a little bit deeper on our end with our podcast here, just kind of where everyone slots in the West. But where do you have the Oilers finishing this year?
You recall where I had them win-wise last year?
I think it was 50. Was it 51 or 52 wins?
No, I said 47 of 52 wins. Okay. And the team was 21-18-3 at the 42 game mark.
Yeah, you took a lot of heat. I remember that.
And I got murdered for, hey, you're such a homer. And hey, I do work for the Oilers Entertainment. I just looked at the schedule and said, like, I looked at, like, part of the rationale was, I never wavered. I stuck with it. I said, this team has more juice to give. So on that note, they finished what amounted to 2 points out of first place in the Western Conference last year.
Yeah.
If they had won in Montreal on Super Bowl Sunday, right?
Yeah.
They would have ended up, now they went 14-0-1 in their final 15 games. So nobody saw them at that time being a team that, I do think they'll be first in the Pacific this year. Okay. I think Dallas and Colorado are going to be really good too. Yeah. So one of those 3 teams, I think you're going to see haves and have-nots in that Central Division, okay? But I think that both Colorado and Dallas have deep teams, and they're going to be good. So between Dallas, Colorado, and Edmonton, that's who's going to win the division. I wonder with Vegas, just, they missed did they not miss the playoff?
The year before.
Yeah, they missed the playoffs, then they won the cup. They're a well-run organization, but I got them in the mix. I think Calgary finishes 44 to 48 wins. Vancouver is 42 to 46 wins. Mm-hmm. But I have the Oilers in first place.
Really, Vancouver? Wow.
Yeah.
What is it? The goaltending?
Yes, because there's no way he can be as bad as he was last year.
And their PK can't be as bad. They brought some players in to help that out, like Ian Cole and Carson Soucy
and Bluger.
Yeah, like those guys are going to kind of help that out.
Who's your best penalty killer?
Your goalie.
Your goalie. Yeah. The guy had a 900 save percentage last year. He's a career 9-10 goalie. Yeah. He's a good goalie. It's just like Markstrom. Like, yeah, and the thing, it needs to be stated with Calgary, and I'm not doing this because Phil's with us, but
And there's,
like, like the Flames finished ahead of Florida, who made it to the
Yeah.
Stanley Cup final last year, right? And
Yeah.
Markstrom had a tough season. Markstrom and Demko are both good goalies. They are going to bounce back, and they're both going to be part of the equation as to why Calgary.
Phil you're not even smiling, Phil?
Not yet. He will be soon. But yeah, no, I agree with you there. It'll be interesting to kind of see how that shapes up. I know you were at the Penticton games there, Stauffer, and maybe you I just want to get a quick rip on this player here. He's kind of a guy I got to know and been chatting with. He hasn't been on our pod yet, but hopefully next month or the month after we'll have him on. But that's Sam Honzik with the Calgary Flames, the first overall pick. I think he went 16th overall this past season. Where are you at with his game from what you saw maybe in Penticton and some preseason games here, or just the one preseason game maybe you played the other night?
I actually noticed him more in the game against the Oilers than I did in the rookie tournament. And maybe I was just more focused on the Oilers rookies, but it's funny, right? Like Lambert with Winnipeg. I didn't think Winnipeg was very good at that tournament. And I thought Lambert was pretty good in the game that he played against the Oilers in the exhibition game. So there were some quiet. Now Chad Lucius was coming off an injury. Lambert is the best player to share the puck. I think he'll share the puck more. He's got great individual skill. Coronado was completely on a different level than Honzik for me. But he's 2 years.
Yeah,
2 years old. Like he's going to make the Flames, right? So has he already been reassigned?
No, I don't know if I haven't seen today, maybe, but I know they still had him with the team yesterday. Yeah. But
maybe
I know obviously he's probably going to go back.
He'll be going back. There's
last year was his first year in the WHL. He had 55 or 56 points with the Vancouver Giants, and just maybe a little bit more time with them. And then obviously it's
got to be he's got to play. What do they play now? 68 games. Yeah. He's missed the first 3 or 4. Let's say he plays 60 games. He's got to be a 75-point guy this year in the WHL. So to me, you could see with Coronado, what I noticed more was how good some of Calgary's D were in that tournament and how big they were. They had Klapka, they had a big, that's part of their identity and their organization. They like size and they lean on you. That American League team, when they had they brought in Mitch McLean, I think he came in out of Iowa. And then they had one of the two Lancers, the two brothers, they're tough as nails.
Yeah.
Right. They got a tough farm team. They were physically intimidating.
And Mitch Love's going to be on our podcast this week, so tease that
for you guys.
Yeah. So, Phil, I know you've been dying and waiting to ask some.
Well, yeah, his nipples are hard because Bob was just stroking.
Go ahead.
No, it's because it's cold, Vandy. It's because it's chilly out here, bud. Don't worry.
New Sarepta.
That arena New Sarepta back in the 70s used to actually. There was a guy. He ended up becoming a harness racer from New Sarepta. He played the National Hockey League for Pittsburgh. His kid played maybe with the Oil Kings a couple of years ago. Can you go that far back? Do you recall?
No. I've only been here a couple of years, but that rink is freezing. It's so cold. They could hang meat in there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the hunters are going to hang their meat in there this year. So cold in there. Anyways, Calgary Flames, Michael Backlund. How do you feel about Michael Backlund? Good contract. Good contract, and he got the captaincy.
I'm not often right, Phil, but in 2007, I had a call before I joined the Oilers. I joined the Oilers in basically late August of 2008. 2007, I had a column in the Edmonton Sun. And the night of the 2007 draft, I wrote a piece saying the Oilers missed a boat taking Nash over, or should have gone after Backlund instead of Alex Plante, who they took 15th. I've always liked Backlund. There were a bunch of guys last year in Calgary that had crappy offensive seasons. He was plus 24. He's a hell of a player. He's a great third line center. And when they're rolling out Lindholm, who's a real good two-way player, Kadri is due for a big bounce back, and Backlund, they're good at center. Like they've got three really. He's a highly competitive player. He plays his best games against Edmonton absolutely all day. I totally understand why they made that guy captain.
Yeah, and pretty team friendly deal too.
Sure. I mean, he's older, so see, I'm looking up New Sarepta hockey. I can't believe I forgot. It's gonna bother me that
I know it will, because you are the
Didn't Gregor grow up there?
Yeah,
Gregor grew up playing.
Colin did, but this guy was better than this guy played in the NHL, like in the mid to late 80s. He was a smaller player.
This is where we don't have the live fans listening, where the text line can jump in, right? So
And help
I
us
know
out.
all of New Sarepta is going to be listening to this. We're going to have
I
25 new
actually
listeners
feel
in
a lot of
Costco.
shame. His son, I can't believe I forgot this guy's name. His son.
Bob, you answer the question. I'll look it up for you.
Okay.
yeah.
So just type up New Sarepta.
I got it.
Hockey players from New Sarepta, and we're looking for a guy in the 80s. And for some reason, I thought he was with Pittsburgh. All right. So sorry, back to Backlund. Love him. Great player. Hard nose, real good two-way centerman. Plays his best against the Oilers. And the contract, yeah, come on. It's a sub $5.5 million deal. It's fine for him.
Yeah. It's funny because last year when he was on with us, I kind of got to know him a bit after, and I was telling him, I'm like, you don't know how much you're loved actually in Edmonton. And he was kind of like, for real. And then I told him how you feel, because obviously, I've known you for 15 plus years, and it was interesting that he was just so grateful to kind of hear that, he is kind of enamored, by kind of other people in the other markets. And obviously there's the Battle of Alberta, and everyone want to beat each other, but obviously it's great when both are successful. So throw back to Phil there. Sorry about that, Phil.
Oh no, it's all good, man. It's good. It's good to show love to other players, hey, sometimes. But
there's a lot of good players in the league, man.
Absolutely. And especially like doing this podcast, like you learn to appreciate like other players too, and like other players. And like you just said, like we're not as involved with players as you are, but the ones we do get to interact with, like it's just so cool to see that like they're all human beings, and
but you
they're
guys
actually all pretty good people.
Game.
So
you know the game.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned Matt Coronado, and you think he's got a place on the team this year?
Yes, I do. I think
I agree. I agree with that too. He's had a pretty good camp so far this year.
He can. I mean, he can score, right? So he's got offensive. Have we still not looked up the players from New Sarepta?
I'm finding it, Bob. I know it's killing you.
It's driving me. I'm actually quite, like I said, his kid played on the Oil Kings like 2 years ago. I'm really upset with myself, and now I'm thinking it might not have been Minnesota that he had a cup of coffee. He was
now you said Minnesota. It was Pittsburgh.
No, it was Steve Gottis, and he's from It says he was born in Camrose, but he played in New Sarepta.
You found it?
Yeah. So Gotaas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he played in Pittsburgh and he played in Minnesota. So I remember the teams that he played for, but I couldn't. So his kid was with the Oil Kings a couple years ago when they were there. Now I can.
There you go. Maybe a Puckadoo answer there. Hey,
his kid's great.
So when we played, yeah, great, yeah, that's his kid. So we used to play in the Highway 14 League. I was in Fultonville, and we used to play New Sarepta, and he was their best player by a mile. I mean, obviously, he was their best player. The guy played about 10 years of minor pro, and his best off. Well, he had a 53-goal, 108-point season in the Western Hockey League. So
he's got a doozy of a hockey DB pick.
Yeah.
We got to get him on. Let's get him on the pod.
Yeah, he played on arguably the toughest junior team of all time, the '85 Memorial Cup champ Prince Albert Raiders. Dave Manson was on that team.
Yeah.
Ken Baumgartner was on that team. Manny Viveros, the head coach. You mentioned Hanzik. He's the head coach of the Vancouver Giants now. Manny Viveros.
Kim Issel.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Manny was the CHL Player of the Year that year. He had 3 straight 100-point games. And Terry Simpson coached that team, and they used to do this thing. They were ahead of their time with penalty killing, and they would basically play a 1-3, but Manny was in a middle role as a defender, and the guy that would bring the puck up the ice, he would force that guy up the middle, and because it was usually a forward that was bringing it up. And I know for a fact in the 85 Memorial Cup, you guys can look it up on YouTube, he stripped the guy coming right up the middle of the ice as he's trying to get zone entry on the power play, went the other way and went in and scored. He was a hell of a player, Viveros. But that team, the police chief, Edmonton's current police chief, was on that 84-85 Prince Albert Raiders team. They had about 9 guys that could fight. They used to steal the other team's Dale McPhee was on that team, police chief. They used to steal the other team's nets. You guys know that, right? In the warm-up.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
That was the team. So
Yeah.
Josh, you think you're a bad tough guy? Those guys were tough. When you're stealing, and the only team that would stand up to them, Moose Jaw,
yeah.
because they had Mike Keane and Kelly Buckberger, and Mike Keane, pound for pound, was as good a fighter as there was in the mid to late 1980s in the West. He could, because he could punch with both hands, and he was an exceptional undersized fighter. So now, as for Coronado, he came out of Harvard, probably didn't do a lot of fighting there. Do you know who was the former Harvard boxing champ that played for the Calgary Flames, Phil? One of the biggest,
me.
Okay, one of the biggest talkers in the game. And he was actually legitimately tough. But his joke was, how tough do you have to be the boxing champ at Harvard? Neil Sheehy was out of Harvard.
Left nut.
There you go.
Right on. Okay, we got one question. It's from our CDN text inbox stuff. We had this a lot of questions from this today from the guys here in Fort McMurray and here in Syncrude. A lot of the questions are, and the hottest topic is, who is the starting goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers come opening night?
Yeah, I think Stuart Skinner is going to start. It's interesting. Tomorrow we're going to have Beniers going against. Beniers is in the lineup. Somebody from Seattle posted the Oilers lineup tomorrow. I think it looks like Campbell might be starting. But I think Stuart Skinner is going to start game number 1. Just remember, coaches know what they know. And Stuart Skinner grew and evolved under Jay Woodcroft during his time down in Bakersfield. And Stuart Skinner became the number 1 goalie by the end of last year. And you can make an argument, Stauffer, he shouldn't have started game 6. He got pulled 3 times in the playoffs. That's all fair commentary. But at the end of the day, the guy that coach knows better is Skinner. And you only have one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
And Campbell's first impression was a struggle. He's going to have to prove it a bit more. So I believe Skinner will start the opening game of the year in Vancouver.
Perfect. Vandy, you have any final comments for Stauffer before he signs out?
No, I mean, mine probably would have been the goaltender question, but no, Bob, I do, on behalf of Josh and Philly, I appreciate you supporting us and letting us, do our thing and coming on and chatting, shooting the shit with us.
Well, it's not every day you get a chance to sit there and talk about Steve Godas coming from Now, who is the best player amongst your guys' peer group, by the way?
So I was 76, Southside Athletic Club. I would have to say there were probably 2 of them: Ryan Preck, Steve, Steve-O, and Kevin Chirac.
Yeah, so obviously Ryan Preck, carved out a pretty decent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm 84, so obviously like the 84, 85.
84.
Yeah, so
you don't want to know how old I was in 84.
Yeah, I had a lot. Yeah, exactly. But no,
all I'm gonna tell you is in 1984, it was the week before our high school grad. Okay, at Hanley. So I'm giving you the range of the year now. And the Oilers had won the they'd beaten the Islanders in game 5. I remember they were up 4-0 after 2 periods, and Pat LaFontaine scored 2 goals like the first 3 minutes as we were driving to my buddy's place. And then we went to the convention in South, and everybody said, "What are you guys doing here? Get downtown. It's crazy." And you know what? It was crazy, and it was spontaneous, and it was beautiful, and people weren't being idiots. Like, they were just having a great time. And the city partied like you've never seen before. It didn't get run over. Like sometimes what happens is it gets out of control, and then stuff gets burnt down and part of the city gets destroyed. It wasn't like that. The first one was organic and genuine and beautiful, and it was just, holy crap, we're in a city. We just won the Stanley Cup. We're only in the league 5 years, right? And they went on to win 5 of the next 7. And I'll be honest, like the Islanders, almost got upset by the Rangers in game 5. They had best of 5. And Barry Beck separated his shoulder, and that flipped that game. And the Islanders ended up winning. And I'll never forget it. A couple of my buddies were like, this sucks. We're never going to beat the Islanders. They never lose in the playoffs. I won't say which other player, but one of the guys that I knew sort of indirectly through somebody had said they wanted the Islanders. They wanted a crack at them again after how they got beat the year before. And they're like, if we're going to win this thing, we want to beat the best. And they're the best. And you know what? That's what the best do. The best don't want to beat a team when they got 4 or 5 guys out with injury. They want that team completely healthy and beating them. And when you lose, like Edmonton lost to Vegas last year with 6, the Oilers had leads in all 6 games and didn't win the series.
Mm-hmm.
It burns the organization. It does. And the players. That's why there's such an emphasis on defense in preseason. I'm going to tell you right now, I put the predictions out on the point totals on the Oilers players, and they're all down from last year, and everybody was just giving it to me. But it would not surprise me if Edmonton tries to shave 30 to 40 goals against off. They're playing completely different system play, more zone defense in their own end, which means the opposition is going to have the puck more. But you don't give up the front of the net. And then maybe not quite as aggressive on the forecheck. So maybe the team won't score as much, but you got to learn from your mistakes. And they kind of beat themselves in games 5 and game 6. So, and they want to beat the best. So if that means going, and first things first, you gotta get in the playoffs and get home ice. And at some point along the way, they're probably, if they're going to go to the Cup, I think they're going to have to beat Colorado or Detroit. And I think those are Dallas. And I think those 2 teams are going to be really good. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but beat the best, because that's what the best want. The best want that matchup, and the Oilers got players that want that. They want that.
Yep. All right, Stauf. Enjoy the rest of the night here in Seattle.
Just starting for me.
Yes, exactly. So
you're an hour behind.
Yeah.
But something like that.
Yeah. All right, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
Yep. See you. Have a good
one.
Thanks a lot, eh?
Cheers, pal.
Cheers.
Huge thanks to Bob Stauffer for joining us to preview some Western Conference situations here in the West. And we'll do the East later this week. We got some guests lined up for that. So once that's official, we'll do our Eastern Conference. But that's kind of our Western Conference breakdown. Vandy, I know you got to give a plug, but just a quick rip on what you heard from Stauf. And then I know there's a special sick tap you want to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, Stauf, he's pretty modest. I'm very rarely wrong is what he says, but I am, he's got a big following in Edmonton, and there's a reason why, because he is not wrong on a lot of things he says. Oh. And as outlandish sometimes as people think he is, with his predictions and all that, this man studies stats, and it's hard to argue with him. I disagree with him on the Canucks thing though, but no, he's he's been good for us, and let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. And some stick taps you have to hand out. I know you.
I do. So I'm going to put a plug out there for Max Jones and my son Jace. And I think there's another kid. I didn't get his name, but they started a podcast. So they're, kind of, what are they? They're 14 years old. Yeah. My MJ would be 14. Jace is 14. So he's got a podcast. I think it's on Spotify, and it's 30 Minutes Inside Sports with MJ. So if you guys are listening, just take a peek at it. They run through every kind of sport, CFL, NFL, that kind of thing. So
check this out. I got a nice drive home tomorrow. So
yeah.
Bosco's got it sorted. He's gonna listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And then let's critique the shit out of him.
Exactly.
It's probably better than ours.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe
there's no way it is.
Yeah.
Not a chance.